Welcome to Cybersecurity Under Pressure. Real attacks, real lessons. Every breach starts with something small. A trusted login, a missed alert, a system no one thought could matter. Here, we follow the incident. How it began, how it moved, what broke under pressure, and what security engineering and business teams should learn before the next one. Because the next attack will not wait for a perfect plan. Now, let's follow the evidence.
Welcome to Cybersecurity Under Pressure. Real attacks, real lessons.
Imagine you are running a massive chemical processing plant.
Yeah, picture it.
The distillation columns are running hot, the pressure is steady, and your operations team is just monitoring the flow rates, business as usual.
Right, everything is green on the board.
And then suddenly, every primary control screen in your facility just goes black.
Wow.
A ransomware message pops up. So you reach for the emergency safety switch to initiate a controlled shutdown, right?
You have to. It's instinct.
But what if the attackers have already burned the lifeboats before you even realized the ship was under attack?
That's a terrifying thought for any plant operator.
Yeah.
And, we are halfway through the week. It's Wednesday, and we are tracking an evolving situation that requires our immediate attention.
Yeah, it's a busy week.
It really is. And we are looking at a scenario where engineering constraints, operational uptime, and active threat groups are just colliding in a very messy way.
Messy is putting it mildly, honestly.
For sure. So we need to explore a central question today. Should safety instrumented systems, or SIS, be architecturally segregated from the basic process control system, the BPCS, to mitigate cyber-physical risk?
That question, it strikes right at the heart of the most difficult operational decisions a facility manager has to make today.
Right.
Because when you tell a plant manager or, a corporate board that they need to physically or architecturally isolate their safety systems from their primary process controls, you are introducing immense business risk.
Oh yeah, you're talking about duplicating hardware.
Duplicating hardware, massively complicating engineering workflows, and honestly creating a situation where visibility into the plant safety mechanisms becomes incredibly difficult for the Security Operations Center.
Which is a nightmare for the SOC.
It is. The business challenge here is immense because you are asking operators to choose between this theoretical isolation and the very real need to monitor their own environments efficiently.
But we are forcing this conversation right now because the risk is no longer theoretical, right?
No, it's very real.
It is active and it is severe. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency just released Advisory CISU AA26097A.
Right, the new one.
Yeah, and this advisory details Iranian-linked activity that is specifically targeting programmable logic controllers, or PLCs.
PLCs being the actual brains of the physical operation.
Spot on. And we are looking at this alongside the recent ANISU report on the Industrial Control Systems Security Threat Landscape and the U.S. Department of Energy's Cybersecurity for the Energy Sector OT guidelines.
So a lot of heavy documentation pointing in the same direction.
Yeah, the threat landscape has definitively shifted. But let me propose a thought here from the engineering resilience side.
Go for it.
PLC attacks have been a known quantity for, over a decade. Stuxnet put them on the map ages ago.
Yeah, ancient history in cyber years.
Right. So why does this specific string of Iranian-linked attacks change the calculus for plant operators today compared to, say, 5 years ago?
Well, it really comes down to the quality of attacker adaptation and our deep, often hidden supplier dependencies.
Hidden being the operative word there.
Yeah, because 5 years ago, the attacker mindset was largely opportunistic,
Like just spraying malware?
Pretty much. We worried about untargeted ransomware hitting a Windows engineering workstation on the plant floor and maybe incidentally locking up a human-machine interface.
Just collateral damage.
Right. The attackers did not necessarily understand the physical process of the chemical plant or the refinery. They just encrypted the file systems and demanded money.
They didn't care how the pipes connected.
No, not at all. But what we are seeing in the current CISA advisory and that NAESU data is a fundamental evolution in technical capability.
They're getting smarter.
Much smarter. Attackers are no longer just locking screens. They are going after the engineering assets themselves.
Wait, like the actual design files?
Yes. They are hunting for the PLC project files, the intricate logic diagrams, the network maps that define how the physical process actually operates.
Oh, wow. So they're learning the physics of the facility.
They are taking the time to learn it, yes. And crucially, they are realizing they do not need to fight their way through the highly defended primary plant perimeter to get these files.
Because that perimeter is usually locked down tight.
Right. They just need to breach a Tier 3 or Tier 4 subcontractor who has a copy of the PLC logic sitting on an unmanaged, vulnerable laptop.
Ah, the supply chain weak link.
Yeah. The calculus has changed because the attack surface is no longer confined to the plant's firewall. I mean, it is the entire distributed engineering supply chain.
Now let's move into the technical breakdown.
So let us trace the mechanics of how this leakage actually happens.
Yeah, relying on the causal chain detailed in that CISO advisory, right?
Right. It is a highly specific 6-step process of how engineering assets leak out of secure environments and ultimately enable these devastating cyber-physical attacks.
Okay, so take us through step 1.
We start at the top with steps 1 and 2, which are classification and distribution. The asset owner, the plant operator, classifies a sensitive engineering asset. This might be the logic file for the programmable logic controller that manages the pressure relief valves.
Extremely sensitive stuff.
Very, so they place it in a controlled, centralized repository. And in this environment, security is pristine.
Right, you got all the bells and whistles.
You have centralized identity management, strict access permissions, robust encryption at rest and in transit, and comprehensive audit logging.
A true fortress.
The asset owner then distributes it or grants access to an authorized prime contractor hired to perform an integration or, a maintenance task.
And at this stage, the trust boundary is still solid.
It remains completely intact. The asset is protected by enterprise-grade controls.
Right, and if industrial engineering existed in a vacuum, I guess the security story would just end there.
But it never exists in a vacuum.
No, building and maintaining complex OT environments requires massive collaboration.
Which brings us to step 3.
Yeah, step 3 is where that controlled environment begins to fracture under the weight of operational reality.
How so?
Well, the prime contractor delegates a highly specialized task to a lower tier supplier.
Like a niche vendor.
Yeah, perhaps a tier 3 specialized diagnostic firm or even a tier 4 independent consultant. And these subcontractors operate with entirely different IT ecosystems.
They aren't running the prime's corporate stack.
Not at all. Their specialized diagnostic tools might be decades old and utterly incompatible with the prime contractor's heavily secured cloud-based repository.
Or maybe they're on site in a bad spot.
Right. Perhaps they work in on-site, deep inside a concrete bunker of a facility with zero Wi-Fi or cellular connectivity.
So they can't authenticate.
Exactly. I mean, they cannot authenticate back to the centralized identity management system, even if they wanted to. The environmental constraints just begin to fight against the security controls.
Which forces step 4, and, from an engineering resilience perspective, this is the critical failure point.
The breaking of the seal.
Yes. The subcontractor is under pressure to complete the job, so they export the content.
They pull it out of the vault.
They pull the sensitive logic out of the secure repository and convert it.
Into what?
They might export it to a computer-aided design file, a building information modeling or BIM file, a standard PDF for easy reading.
Oh, a PDF just sitting there.
Or they simply drop the raw PLC logic onto a local USB drive or a consumer-grade cloud collaboration platform.
Just to get the work done.
Yeah. And the moment that export happens, the asset crosses the trust boundary.
Controls are gone.
The enterprise security controls, the access logs, the encryption, the identity verification checks, they do not travel with the exported file.
The asset loses its protective labels.
And its persistent protection. It is now completely stripped of its armor.
It becomes a ghost in the supply chain.
That's a good way to put it.
You have a highly sensitive blueprint floating around without a leash. And that leads directly to step 5, which is peripheral exposure.
Right, because now it's in the wild.
That exported copy is now sitting on an endpoint that the asset owner does not own, does not control, and cannot see.
Like a personal laptop.
Yeah, and it gets exposed to a myriad of conventional IT vulnerabilities. Maybe the subcontractor uses the same password for their small business network as they do for a compromised third-party forum.
Which leads to stolen credentials.
Or maybe the file ends up in a personal cloud storage folder, just to make remote work easier over the weekend.
People do that all the time.
All the time. Because the file is no longer governed by the original secure repository, it is entirely vulnerable to standard, low-level, unmanaged endpoint compromise.
The attacker doesn't need an advanced OT exploit to get the file then.
No, they just need a basic phishing email targeting a small business.
And that brings us to the final phase, step 6, which is delayed detection.
The blind spot.
The operator of the plant has zero telemetry in those lower supply chain tiers.
None at all.
None. They have granular visibility up to the point of the prime contractor's export, but after that, they are completely blind.
So they can't track it.
They cannot revoke access remotely. They cannot confirm the deletion of the file once the specific maintenance contract ends.
And they wouldn't know if it got stolen.
They certainly do not know when an advanced threat actor has quietly exfiltrated their critical safety logic from that Tier 4 consultant's laptop.
And this is precisely how the attacker gains the blueprint of the facility.
Yeah, they use this leaked engineering intelligence to study the process, identify the critical nodes, and craft a highly specific, highly damaging attack.
But the real danger, the catastrophic risk here, emerges when we look at how the plant's architecture is actually built.
Right, the internal wiring.
Yeah, because if the basic process control system, the BPCS, and the safety instrumented system, the SIS, share underlying infrastructure,
Which they often do to save money.
if they utilize the same engineering workstations, the same network switches, or authenticate against the same Active Directory credentials, an attacker who leverages those leaked assets can map those shared pathways.
And compromise both systems simultaneously.
To put this architectural risk into a clearer perspective, think of the BPCS as a ship's main navigation and propulsion system.
Okay, I like this analogy.
It steers the vessel, controls the speed, and keeps the cargo moving efficiently across the ocean.
Doing the heavy lifting.
Right. The SIS, on the other hand, is the network of emergency lifeboats, the automated fire suppression systems, and the collision alarms.
The things you hope you never need.
Yes. So, if a blueprint leak allows an attacker to study the ship's wiring and start a fire that consumes both the bridge and the lifeboats at the very same time, you suffer a fatal common mode failure.
You lose your ability to control the process.
And simultaneously, you lose your ability to fail safely, ship goes down, and there's no backup.
The physics and logic of why shared resources fail together are extensively documented in the OT security space.
There's a lot of literature on this.
Yeah, the Drago's research publication on common mode failures in OT networks breaks this mechanism down incredibly effectively.
What's a practical example of that?
Well, if a safety system relies on a Windows-based engineering workstation that is also used by technicians to configure the primary process controllers, a single opportunistic ransomware stream can lock both environments.
Just one infection gets both.
Right. Or if the BPCS and the SIS share a network switch in the server room, a denial of service attack or a maliciously misconfigured routing table takes both communication pathways offline instantly.
Wow, instantly.
The attacker does not even need to write specialized, sophisticated OT malware to defeat the safety system if the underlying IT infrastructure is shared.
They just hit the choke point.
Yes, the failure of the shared resource guarantees the failure of both the control and the safety layers. They fall together.
So, viewing this from the attacker's methodology and the business perspective, how do we actually spot this leakage and shared vulnerability before the cyber-physical attack manifests in the physical world?
Defenders have to focus their telemetry on the operational points of friction.
Meaning what, practically?
You must require digital receipts for file access from your prime contractors.
Paper trails. Digital ones, yeah. You must rigorously verify file versions and cryptographic hashes when logic is brought back into the plant to ensure no unauthorized modifications have occurred during the maintenance window.
Trust, but verify.
More like verify and verify again. You have to monitor your own corporate perimeter for anomalous cloud syncs that might indicate an engineer is making an informal export just to bypass a cumbersome security control.
Because engineers will find a way around friction.
Always. But most importantly, you have to enforce strict contractual incident notification clauses with your prime contractors, mandating that they legally flow those reporting requirements down to the lowest tiers of the supply chain.
It is about demanding traceability and accountability where your technical visibility ends.
Now let's turn to the operational decisions.
We have to translate this mechanism of compromise into the intense reality of running an industrial business.
The real-world headaches.
Yeah, the friction between enforcing strict security controls, maintaining diagnostic tool compatibility, meeting brutal engineering deadlines, and keeping the plant running 24/7 is immense.
It's a massive balancing act.
It is, because if we, as security practitioners, mandate strict architectural segregation between the control systems and the safety systems, operators face a perceived loss of control and traceability.
They feel like they can't see their own plant.
Right. Engineers on the plant floor are under immense pressure to keep the production line moving.
Downtime costs millions.
So if the security controls required to access the isolated safety system are too cumbersome, those engineers will find a way around them.
They always do.
They will create informal shadow exports of critical logic, or they will leave an unauthorized bridging device plugged in just to get their jobs done on time.
That is the operational reality that policies often ignore.
Yeah, the human element.
You can draft a policy mandating all the physical segregation you want. But if a lead engineer needs to diagnose a failing pressure sensor at 2 in the morning, and the only feasible way to retrieve the diagnostic logs is to bridge the isolated network gap with a personal USB drive or a dual-homed maintenance laptop,
They're going to do it.
they will do it. They have production quotas to meet. Strict, unmonitored segregation often creates a false sense of security for the executives in the boardroom while driving the actual cyber risk underground into unmonitored shadow channels that the security team cannot defend.
I understand the friction. I mean, I empathize with the engineers on the floor, but the regulatory and standards landscape is pointing heavily and decisively towards strict segregation.
The standards are pretty rigid, yes.
We have to look at the foundational documents governing our industry. Look at IEC 62443, specifically Part 3.3, which defines strict system security requirements and security levels.
Right, the zones and conduits model.
Yes. It mandates clear architectural security zones and conduits, explicitly demanding that critical systems not be casually commingled.
It draws very hard lines.
Then you have IEC 61511, which is the foundational regulatory baseline for functional safety in the process industry.
And what does that mandate?
It explicitly requires separation between safety and non-safety systems. The entire philosophy is built on ensuring that a catastrophic failure in the primary control system does not compromise the independent safety function.
Keeping the domains separate.
Furthermore, the guidance from the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, and the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity all consistently mandate or highly recommend the strict isolation of the safety instrumented system.
A very unified global stance.
Very. The global standards are clearly telling us that shared infrastructure between these domains is an unacceptable engineering risk.
I hear the argument from the standards bodies, but I will counter that perspective with NIST, Special Publication 882 Revision 2, the Guide to Industrial Control Systems Security.
Okay, bringing NIST into it.
Alongside substantial peer-reviewed research published in IE Explore regarding converging safety and security in industrial automation.
And what's their take on this?
The central argument presented in these frameworks is that true air gaps are operational myths.
Myths. That's a strong word.
They simply do not exist in modern, highly efficient, data-driven facilities. If you isolate the SIS completely and sever all digital ties, you lose the ability to monitor its health centrally.
You can't pull it for data.
Exactly. I mean, without authenticated, deeply monitored integration, operators are flying blind. They cannot pull continuous diagnostic data efficiently, they cannot patch the safety engineering workstations in a timely manner, and they cannot detect behavioral anomalies in the safety logic from a centralized security operations center.
Because it's a black box.
Right. The paradox of modern engineering is that integration, when done securely, actually improves overall resilience by providing the visibility needed to detect advanced threats early.
You know, we can actually look outside of traditional industrial OT for some critical lessons on this specific convergence.
Like where?
The automotive sector. They are currently grappling with the exact same collision of functional safety and cybersecurity.
Oh, with smart cars and autonomous driving.
Yeah, modern vehicles are essentially data centers on wheels. They are software-defined, and they have to comply with rigorous standards like ISO, SAE 21434 for cybersecurity engineering.
Right, alongside the UNES regulation number R155.
Yes. These vehicles have electronic control units, or ECS, managing highly critical safety functions like anti-lock braking and power steering, operating right alongside ECS, managing the Bluetooth infotainment and cellular connectivity.
The radio and the brakes are on the same car.
Right, and the automotive industry learned very quickly that you cannot just wire everything together on a flat internal network without hardware-level segregation and distinct physical trust boundaries,
Otherwise, someone hacks the Bluetooth and cuts your brakes.
which has happened in proof-of-concept research. So industrial OT can learn a profound amount from how modern ECU architectures isolate critical safety commands from external, potentially vulnerable communication channels.
The automotive comparison is a strong one for hardware segregation, but we must acknowledge that an industrial facility is not a passenger car.
Fair point. The scale is different.
And the lifespan. A massive chemical plant or petroleum refinery has a continuous operational lifespan of decades, not years.
You can't just trade it in after 5 years.
You cannot just swap out the underlying architecture during an annual model refresh. The SANS white paper on securing PLCs in the enterprise makes a highly compelling case here.
What's their argument?
That because we cannot easily rip and replace legacy OT architecture, we must secure the integration points rather than pretending we can eliminate them entirely.
So leaning into security controls rather than physical air gaps.
Right. You implement robust multi-factor authentication, you monitor the network traffic meticulously for anomalies, and you maintain deep visibility. You manage the risk through observation and access control rather than isolation.
This is where we have a substantive disagreement on the philosophy of safety.
I figured we might.
I maintain that any digital link, any shared authentication credential, any bidirectional communication pathway between the BPCS and the SIS is fundamentally unsafe.
Even if it's monitored.
Yes, because it violates the core engineering principle of functional safety independence. The Kaspersky 2023 ICS Attack Trends report documented multiple real-world incidents where the lack of strict SIS segregation led directly to safety impact.
Okay, but those were likely poorly secured links.
Doesn't matter.
No.
If there is a digital pathway, no matter how deeply monitored or authenticated, a sufficiently sophisticated attacker, like the ones detailed in the CSU advisory, will eventually find it, traverse it, and exploit it to achieve a common mode failure.
And my counter-argument is that complete, unmonitored isolation leads directly to delayed incident response, which is just as dangerous.
How so?
If your safety system is an isolated island and an insider physically accesses it, or a contractor compromises it via a transient device like an infected maintenance tablet, you will have zero warning.
Because it's not phoning home.
Right. You will not know the safety logic has been tampered with until the plant experiences a critical pressure event and the system fails to shut down.
A silent failure.
The plant explodes because you prioritized isolation over awareness. Visibility into the health of the SIS is non-negotiable for a modern defense strategy.
I will partially concede that point. Visibility is undeniably critical.
Thank you.
You cannot defend a network you cannot see, and flying blind on the health and status of your ultimate safety system is a dangerous posture. However, I insist that this required visibility must be achieved safely.
Define safely in this context.
It cannot be achieved through bidirectional network integration where data can flow both ways. We must use unidirectional gateways, specifically data diodes.
Hardware enforcement.
Yes, this is hardware where the laws of photonics and physics dictate that data can only travel in one direction, out of the safety system to a monitoring environment.
It sends data out, but physically cannot receive.
It can never receive a signal back. That hardware-enforced one-way flow satisfies your requirement for visibility and my non-negotiable demand for strict architectural segregation.
Data diodes are a highly robust, physically secure technical solution, but from a business perspective, we cannot ignore the cost and latency trade-offs they introduce.
They aren't cheap, I'll admit that.
No, they're not. The Honeywell Industrial Cybersecurity Best Practices Guide and the Control Global Analysis on Safety and Security Convergence heavily highlight these real-world impacts.
The financial side of things.
Implementing data diodes, maintaining entirely separate hardware infrastructure, and building dedicated, isolated engineering workstations exclusively for the SIS is incredibly expensive.
It's a major capital expense.
It requires significant capital expenditure. Furthermore, diodes introduce latency in data collection, and they completely eliminate the ability to perform remote bidirectional diagnostics.
Which means engineers have to walk down to the plant floor.
Exactly. I mean, you are effectively doubling the maintenance effort and the administrative burden on an engineering staff that is likely already stretched thin. We have to acknowledge that these stringent controls carry a heavy business and operational cost.
This brings us to the pressure test.
Okay, let's put this into practice.
We are putting you in the center of an active, escalating crisis. You are the operational leader of a major industrial facility. You are actively under attack right now.
Red alerts everywhere.
A sophisticated ransomware strain has breached your corporate perimeter, bypassed the IT/OT boundary, and successfully encrypted the basic process control system.
The worst-case scenario.
Your primary control screens are locked, the operator HMIs are displaying ransom notes, and you have entirely lost operational command of the physical process.
I can't steer the ship.
However, the safety instrumented system remains operational, unencrypted, and seemingly untouched for the moment.
The binding constraint you are facing here is severe. The SIS must autonomously initiate a safe shutdown of the physical process without any manual human intervention, despite the total loss of the BPCS control network.
Because things are getting critical in the pipes.
You have complex chemical reactions occurring, reactor pressures building rapidly, and no way to steer the ship from the bridge. The automated lifeboats have to deploy themselves perfectly, relying solely on their local sensors and logic.
And the decision required of you right now in this moment of crisis is that you must validate that the SIS can and will function completely independently of the BPCS communications before you allow any future production deployment to continue.
But you're in the dark.
You're facing this crisis with terrifyingly incomplete evidence. You have no empirical proof of the SIS's autonomous shutdown capabilities under these specific massive BPCS ransomware conditions because it has never been tested in a live fire scenario of this magnitude.
You can't exactly run a drill like this on a live plant.
No, it's too dangerous. Furthermore, you lack a quantitative risk assessment of the shared credential pathways or hidden network bridges that the attackers might currently be traversing to reach the SIS.
This is the nightmare scenario for any plant manager. We are entirely blind to the lateral movement of the attacker within the lower levels of the OT network, and we are relying on a safety system that we fervently hope is truly independent.
Hoping it's air-gapped when it might not be.
Because we lack this evidence, we have to implement temporary, immediate risk reduction measures just to survive the next few hours, contain the blast radius, and ensure a safe shutdown of the physics.
We must act decisively. We deploy unidirectional data diodes immediately between whatever unencrypted segments are left of the BPCS and the SIS.
Just severing the two-way links.
As heavily referenced in the automation.com modern OT architecture guidelines, we must physically sever all bidirectional traffic to ensure the ransomware cannot organically pivot into the safety logic.
Lock down the pathway.
We dictate strict, immediate network segmentation with hardware firewalls, dropping all non-essential traffic across the entire plant. And we mandate, right this second, dedicated engineering workstations for the SIS.
No more sharing laptops.
Any laptop, tablet, or diagnostic tool that has ever touched the BPCS network is permanently banned from interfacing with safety controllers. We have to forcefully cut off the attacker's pivot points before they find the lifeboats.
Alongside those architectural changes, we also need a rigid, uncompromising escalation trigger.
What's the red line?
If we detect any sign of the BPCS compromise attempting to cross the newly established boundaries, or if we lose even a fraction of telemetry from the SIS monitoring feeds, that is the trigger.
We pull the plug.
We pull the plug immediately. We manually trip the physical safety switches and initiate an emergency, ungraceful plant shutdown, regardless of the massive economic cost of ruined product or damaged equipment.
Safety over profit.
The priority shifts entirely to life safety.
Even with these extreme immediate measures in place, we must soberly acknowledge the residual risk.
There's always a lingering threat.
If the integration points between the control and safety systems were misconfigured previously during a routine maintenance window, or if the attacker has already bypassed our perimeter monitoring through a compromised lower-tier supplier's engineering file, a common mode failure might still occur.
The blueprint leak comes back to haunt us.
We might pull that manual emergency switch and find that the lifeboats are already on fire, and the safety mechanisms have been silently disabled.
Finally, let's close with the key takeaways.
We need to synthesize the lessons from this deep dive carefully. We are not claiming that all digital connections are inherently unsafe, nor are we saying that strict physical segregation guarantees zero risk.
Air gaps fail all the time.
Air gaps are notoriously difficult to maintain and can be easily breached by physical means, insider threats, or transient devices like a vendor's USB drive.
Or a careless contractor.
However, the evidence from the CISU advisory and historical ICS incidents is clear. Ransomware and targeted cyber-physical attacks can and will affect safety layers if the network architecture is not designed with intentional, highly defensible boundaries.
The defensible decision we arrive at is a nuanced, risk-based approach that relentlessly prioritizes functional safety.
It's the only way forward.
The default posture for any critical infrastructure facility must be strict architectural segregation. The safety systems are your absolute last line of defense against a physical catastrophe. They must be protected accordingly.
But with caveats for monitoring.
However, we align on the reality that vetted, deeply monitored integration is permissible, but only where a compelling operational need is clearly demonstrated, and rigorous technical controls, specifically unidirectional gateways like data diodes, are in place.
Hardware enforcement.
Regardless of the architecture chosen, the SIS must always remain fully capable of an autonomous, safe shutdown without relying on the primary control network or shared Active Directory services.
We have explored the hidden vulnerabilities in the distributed engineering supply chain, the operational friction of enforcing security controls on the plant floor, and the terrifying reality of a common mode failure. Which brings us back to our core question. Should safety instrumented systems be architecturally segregated from the basic process control system?
That's a lot to weigh.
The answer is a delicate balancing act between strict isolation and operational reality. For security and operational leaders, the mandate is clear. Protect your engineering blueprints as rigorously as you protect your physical perimeter, eliminate shared infrastructure wherever technically feasible, and never compromise the independent authority of your safety systems. Ensure your lifeboats are truly separate from the ship.
It is a difficult operational balance to strike, but understanding the precise mechanics of these modern cyber-physical attacks makes the right architectural decisions much clearer. Thank you for spending part of your Wednesday with us to examine these critical, complex issues. We will be back tomorrow with a shorter, highly focused follow-up episode diving deeper into this topic. We deeply appreciate you joining Cybersecurity Under Pressure. Real attacks, real lessons.
You have been listening to Cybersecurity Under Pressure. Real attacks, real lessons. Real incidents leave real lessons. Stay prepared, stay critical, and keep following the evidence.